Hello and welcome back to the Digital Marketing Podcast. My name is Kieran Rogers.
I'm Louise Crossley.
And I'm Daniel Rolls.
And today we are talking about Inbound 23 and digital marketing trends.
So I came back last week from the Inbound 23 conference in Boston in the US, which is the Hubspot conference. I went last year as well. I had a really great experience. I thought I'd go back.
So when you went there, you were outbound to inbound.
I was outbound to inbound, exactly. Okay. And I wanted to report back because the reason I go is it's really nice to go to a conference you're not speaking at because there's nothing like speaking at a conference to ruin it for you.
Yeah, that's true.
So I went there and just to absorb and to listen and and I like Boston as well, so it's a good city to kind of go around. So first, a bit of a story. One of the keynote speakers was Stephen Bartlett from Diary of a CEO podcast, a podcast that's wildly more successful than ours, but it's a great podcast. And I was very excited because I was queuing up to get on my plane at Heathrow, and so Stephen Bartlett. And we get onto the same plane. So it's like, yeah, this is fantastic. I thought I might have a word with him. He got on and went to sleep, so I didn't want to up. But
Was this to Boston or was he coming to Jersey?
no, he was coming to Boston. This was the Boston bit. This was because he was one of the keynote speakers at the conference. So what was great was, you might not know this, I have to give you some context to this. The British Airways long-haul safety announcement is a video. So it's not the crew doing it. And it's lots of famous British people giving you, telling you your safety and what you shouldn't be doing. But it's a little bit of character in it as well. And there's this bit where Stephen Bartlett is sitting over here and he's on the safety video as well. So I was very overexcited by the whole thing. Yeah. And there's a bit where he's pretending to speak to his mum on the phone. And he says, yeah, I've had a banana.
Well, she might have just rung when he was filming
maybe,
and kept it in.
Who knows?
You don't know
who
it's
knows?
faked.
But the bottom line is he's reassuring his mum he's eaten and it's a nice little bit. Yeah. We're boarding the plane and this guy's walking through the cabin and sees him and shouts, "Where's your banana?" at him, okay? And Stephen Bartlett doesn't even react. They haven't even heard him as well. So there's no reaction. And then everyone is looking at this man going, why did you just shout that? This really strange moment because the whole plane went dead silent for about 10 seconds. Yeah. The man went bright red and just walked off.
Awkward.
So there you go. There's my Stephen Bartlett story about boarding a plane. So let's go and look at the kind of key trends that came out.
Anything after that is going to be a disappointment.
Well, it will be.
Yeah.
I mean, after that, exactly. So what's really interesting, and I kind of expected it as well, every single talk that I went to mentioned AI, okay? Now, good reason. It starts off, HubSpot make their announcements, and a couple of really clever things that they announce. One was they started talking about conversational design. Conversational design was the idea that we were going to make chatbots useful. Okay, it was in our website. So you get the pod, goes, hi, can I help you? And you've planned out all the different things that people are going to ask, and you've given it loads. And invariably, people ask things in a different way, and it doesn't really work. So what they've done is they've taken the cleverness of ChatGPT, and then they've combined it with your own repository of frequently asked questions, key information about key staff, all those kind of things. The chatbot comes up, you can chat to it like ChatGPT and that kind of style, but it knows loads of stuff about you and it's boxed off, it's private, it's not being used to train an external AI and so on.
Still not seen it done well. Annoys the hell out of me.
Well, the new HubSpot stuff, I was playing around with it, and they're only just releasing the Chatspot stuff, and it actually works really well if you put enough time into training it and giving it the right resources, right? So you've got to tell it about your brand guidelines, your key staff, the products you sell. You've got to tell it all your frequently asked questions, and then it will get it. So I thought, okay, that's interesting. They're also building in lots of AI for doing things like predicting pipeline and sales and what kind of companies you should focus on, because what you've got in your CRM system is a huge amount of first-party data. So and what's quite clever, they're kind of positioning themselves, well, if you've got all this data in one place, we can start to do some clever stuff with it.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because actually you could take the smartest person out there, put them in your customer service center with no training, and they'd be useless. They'd be worse than useless. They'd be a liability.
Yeah, because they just don't know the answers. And that's what it was before. We were quite happy with that.
Yeah, well, you don't. You train, right? And you train again and again and again. And every time they leave, you've got to train someone else up. But with this, you put the effort into training the AI, then it knows. And you only train it once until something changes.
They had a great case study that said basically they had reduced the amount of customer service calls by 70% by using a bot like this that was actually useful to the customer. But they were also checking, did the customer have a good experience? And they were like 90+% people saying, "Oh, that was really useful. It's saving me loads of time." Yeah, they've done some really good work, and we'll put it into the show notes as well. Now, while I was there, I interviewed Nicholas Holland. Nicholas Holland is a senior guy from HubSpot. Looks after marketing and the product kind of generally. And we've got an interview. We'll do that separately. The reason I wanted to interview him again, it really sticks in my mind. That I interviewed him last year. And at the end of the interview, he said, "There's this thing you should look at called GPT." And I was like, "Yeah, whatever. Yeah."
When was that?
Literally
this time last year?
This time, just over a year ago. And he was kind of aware of it. And it's because we were talking about Jasper.
Yeah.
And he was saying, well, that's GPT is what this is all based on. And we were, at the time, we weren't that aware of it. So thank you, Nicholas. Absolutely brilliant interview. And he made a really good point, and you can hear about this, but he said, there's loads of people that have gone out and he's a really down-to-earth guy. He'll just say it as it is, which I absolutely love. And it was brilliant because we had a PR person in the room as well, sitting there monitoring our conversation to make sure he didn't go off piece too much and it was saying was on track. And you could see them keep flinching when he was saying things.
Yeah,
they were flinching. But big fan of Nicholas. And basically, he was saying everyone is going to go out there and stick AI into their product, right? But there's two types of players. There's the people that are doing it for a bit of a gimmick, for the quick win.
Yeah.
And then what he said is we're going to start making some bets. Yeah. And we know that not everything's going to work, but where we can see it can improve the user experience, the functionality, that kind of stuff, but we're in this for the long haul. There's going to be loads of different AIs. So we're gonna align with the ones that work for our target audience, and this is a long bet, and we're going to iterate. Now, when you're creating a policy of how your organization deals with artificial intelligence, do we use it, don't we use it, what are the ethics, that policy will have to change constantly. Literally, I've been advising UK government on exactly this, of saying, right, what are our rules, regulations? It has to be a moving feast. You can't just, because everyone's like, well, it's going to take ages to develop these outlines, and then we've got to stick with them. It's no. They're going to have to change because it's such a moving field the whole time. So really kind of good point around that. So have a listen to that interview. We'll get that out shortly. And then the other thing was that there was a Google presentation, and it was about privacy. And you kind of spoke about this. So, with Google moving towards privacy more and more, what were you saying about this?
So I just think it's making the data hard to get hold of to make the decisions. Like I'm seeing I am seriously lacking data within my new GA4, like we used to have it. Like it just there's a lot missing, and I'm spotting that because I'm able to compare like other systems, like other weblogs and things. And you go, yeah, no, there's a ton of stuff that we're not getting. But within that, you've got things like GDPR, where for a lot of my clients have got opt out of cookies, so they're GDPR compliant. Yep. And actually, if you've set this up properly, it will opt you out of everything.
Well, when you opt out, you do actually opt out, and you don't set the cookie in the first place.
The cookie doesn't even get set. So it's missing that. And actually, what I'm seeing, particularly in some audiences, real paranoia and real kind of protect my privacy. And actually, I think a lot more people are far more into this for a whole variety of reasons. I mean, for one thing, it just not having it there protects your speed a little bit. I recently got a new broadband. And it came with a Plume device, which has got all sorts of filtering in there, blocks ads, blocks content, blocks all sorts of things, and gives me security alerts on anything that the family have been looking at that was a potential risk. Yeah. I mean, great from a user perspective, but with my marketer's hat on, that's a bit of a nightmare.
Rand Fishkin's been talking about this forever, saying you're not going to have the data, you're not going to be able to measure granularly. We didn't ever really, and it was an illusion that you could totally untangle things, and therefore you need to really understand your audience and really focus on creating those great experiences. Yeah. So I think, that is the increasing world. Just while we're here, you mentioned something about, this is kind of off tangent, about Google Trends and looking at times of day.
Yes. So I like to be data-led, and I was analysing one of my clients' like popular keywords, and I thought it'd be really interesting to know, like, are we advertising at the right time? So I went into
right time of day.
So I went into Google Trends. I looked at their popular keywords to see when the most UK traffic was there. And to my horror, I discovered that all the people searching for their product were doing it at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. Like, what? Wait, what? So my mind was on fire with, my goodness, we're missing a huge opportunity here. We should rejig our PPC campaigns. We should focus it on that, because the data says, and actually had a word with our PPC team, and they were like, that doesn't make sense. I know it doesn't, but that's what the data says, and this is Google. And they were like, well, what do you want to do? I said, well, maybe we should think about restructuring when we're bidding. Maybe we should try this out. And they said, but are you certain on the data? And I went, no, let me check it first before we make some wholesale changes. So I dug through it all, and actually, in a really obscure footnote in the Google notes that I found, saying that Google Search Console, Google Trends uses Eastern time.
Yeah, so it's not.
Right, so
if you're looking at UK,
Oh.
it's not telling you the local time; it's telling you in Eastern time.
Eastern time. It's like whoa. And I just thought it was really interesting because it averted me making an unmitigated disaster and wasting thousands of pounds of my clients.
But my mind had gone because the particular product as well. It's like maybe these are like conspiracy theorists or preppers or what they're up all night planning these schemes. But no, it was just the wrong time. So that's interesting. So that privacy piece we will come back to again and again. Everyone was talking about the challenge of algorithms. And I just want to give you an example of this where this can kind of really catch you out. So we relaunch our YouTube channel. We start doing these videos and, we're uploading this stuff, but it's long form. Now, not that many people want long form video necessarily. Those that do, but when you're just browsing around YouTube, you don't. So I was like, well, we're not getting much traction yet because it's a new channel. So let's pay for it to boost it. So basically what would happen is we would show up as suggested content in loads of people's feeds. Well, if I'm not looking for something, can you keep showing me your videos? And it's a 30-minute long video. You're having a laugh. It's just like, why don't you watch this 30-minute long video? And it's like, no. So basically what was happening is we're promoting these long-form videos. Therefore, loads of people are going, no. And it's really damaging us in the algorithm. So we switch off the advertising. Suddenly, those people that want long-form are watching it to the end. So they're watching for 30 minutes. Great signal as well. And then our SO videos, our short-form kind of videos, loads of people are watching those. So by not paying for advertising, we got more traffic and more views and more engagement. And so it's like, okay.
I guess you're watering down your own KPI that the algorithm's using.
100%.
You're pushing it at people that don't want to know.
Yeah, that was it.
And this is where things like really thinking about your audiences and using the power of GA4's ability to create those audiences is really crucial. Like so many companies fail with their video advertising with me. Oh my goodness, if I get another video on something that I've already bought, a digital service I already subscribe to, it's like, no, and of course I'm going to not give off the right positive signals. I don't need to watch your advert for it because I already have it.
Well, what was interesting, everyone was just talking about how much they're struggling with some of these algorithms. And then what happens, there'd be a talk about how to succeed in TikTok or wherever it was. And everyone would go along and go, I'm going to get some secret that's going to tell me how to dodge the algorithm. And it's back to the problem with digital marketing. It's back to this, we're trying to game algorithms rather than actually going, what's my target audience?
Know your audience.
Yeah, right. So I think, and it is getting harder. Like, for example, we've got that one with YouTube. Then with Twitter, my personal Twitter, I don't know, 9,000 followers on that account, right? It used to be a really good place for engagement for me. I don't tweet very often anymore. But what's happened is over a 5-year period, I was trying to do an analysis. I think something like 60 to 70% of people that follow me on Twitter don't use Twitter anymore at all. They've just left the platform. So suddenly I put something out. The percentage of my audience that actually engage with it is relatively tiny because they're just inactive accounts. So when Elon Musk comes out and goes, well, if you're not using your account for a year or two, we're going to get rid of it. That's really valid. That's why. The other thing, he came out literally in the last couple of days and said, oh, we're going to charge everyone for Twitter for you to have access to the platform to get rid of all the bots. And universally, I think everyone in the room said, hey, I'd do that if it was a tiny amount, if it was like $1 a month or £1 a month or whatever it might be, I'd do that.
I think it'd be
just for a better platform with less noise and more engagement.
Well, and less bots, because if I've got thousands of fake bot accounts I'm using to game the system, suddenly I have to pay $1 per, I'm not going to want to shell out 10, 15 grand.
No, that's it. And then the other thing that everyone was talking about was threads. There's this mass exodus to threads, and threads was the next big thing, and Facebook had really cleverly linked you through to it. Every single talk that I looked at that talked about threads, it wasn't working for people. Basically, they'd moved, they had some really good traction at the beginning, and then it had really slowed down. I think there were 2 out of about 20 or 30 people that I spoke to that said, yeah, it's still working for them. So we're getting to that point where new channels launch, it's really hard for them to kind of get traction. So what it meant more and more is that people were really talking about, we've got all these kind of social media channels. It is really fragmented. The reality is that we're having to do less, but do it better. So that classic old kind of piece of that as well. The other big talk, there was a lot of stuff about SGE, so search generative experience, the stuff that was coming up within Google search results. And I have to be honest, most of it apart from the stuff from Google, was really speculative, in that people imagining what might be happening with the search results and giving you tips on it. The two things that did come out, and we've done a separate episode on this, was the whole piece around EAT, which is the experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness, and the facts using for that. And then this perspectives piece, where you have got little short videos from different people's perspectives on it, and you're starting to listen. So take a look at those two things. But if you go in, and there's a previous episode, which is our SEO news and update, we've got loads of detail on that. So I would look at it. I love the other conversation. So last year when I went to Inbound, the big theme was community. And it was really interesting because, again, it was a topic because now there's less trust, there's deep fakes, there's loads of AI fake content out there. It's getting noisier. The algorithms are getting harder. Community becomes even more valuable.
What is community if it's not a ton of first-party data that proves you're the genuine article?
Yeah, and this was one of the key things, is that people are like, where does that community live? Because we've had this discussion before as well. And it lived in Slack, or it lived in something like, oh, you haven't got the first-party data then. So it was like, it doesn't need to be a discussion forum. It could just be an email that everyone gets and replies to, and you share their perspectives and things like that.
It lives in the hearts and minds of the people that are in that community. Is the
and
truth.
It's a multi-touch point. It's a multi-touch point
is.
community. It's them listening to the podcast. It's them replying to the email. It's them attending the live webinar. And that's what we've tried to do. We've tried to do those different and kind of bring it together as well. The friction, the big conversation was that how do you create a community that isn't tumbleweed when you have a discussion forum? Right, is that you go, oh, this is the place you can speak to each other, and then no one does. So very much it was about what value do you provide, but you have to have a really focused target audience. So this particular community they were talking about was saying, we are a community for companies that have a marketing team of one. And they said, well, you could have done it for like people that have a marketing team of up to 3 people. Like, no, because that's too broad. We just want, it's just you're doing the marketing, therefore that's me, that's for me. So that's what your community has got to kind of reflect to people, is that that's the community for me because that reflects me. So thinking about how you might do that as well. So when we talk about, let's grow, we're the kind of people that care about keeping our skills up to date. That becomes the piece that becomes important as well.
Thinking about community as well, it just reminds me, I was listening to a podcast, and I'll put it in the show notes, but it's like a marketing psychology podcast. And so it looks at all the different brands, so like IKEA, Starbucks, and Netflix. And this one was looking at IKEA, and it was looking all about the IKEA effect. And essentially what it is just the fact that people place more value on stuff that they feel a part of. So if you think of IKEA, they've purchased a product, but it's taken them 3 hours and probably 10 arguments to build. And because of that...
I like the ratio. 3 hours, 10 arguments.
Okay,
yeah, it's nice. At least.
But then because of that, they feel a part of it. And so they're probably also willing to pay a higher price point for that. And you can then, if you take that, you can apply it to anything really. Like even with your messaging, you might say, we've now reached 10,000 customers, but it's not. There's 10,000 of us. And the reason we format the podcast in the way we do is because people feel like they're part of the discussion.
Right.
And, we provide e-learning, but we're providing the platform for you
to learn,
to enhance your career.
Exactly that. Yeah, 100%. And I think getting your brand right and consistently having that messaging really makes a difference. And that helps kind of build community around things as well. So I think that's really good. The other thing is just because you say it's a community doesn't make it a community. Our community of whatever it may be. And it's just like, no one cares. No one's engaging. So I think that's really important. And then what this really came down to, that everyone was speaking to kind of on the sidelines, because I would always go and try and speak to a few people. What did you think of that tool? Was it useful? Did you learn anything from it? Everyone was it was about efficiency, right? It was like, I've got too much to do. My team can't do everything. Where should we be focusing our efforts? And therefore, the big conversation, I had this conversation with Nicholas, which you hear about as well. It's just like, every AI company was going, you're going to have hours to spare now because all the AI tools will be doing this stuff for you. And I was like, wait a minute. When we have anything new that helps you do something, your time just is spent on other tasks because one, there's always more to do, but you're having to compete in a more competitive kind of playing field. So you always have to do it better and do more and all that kind of stuff. I would like to think that we might get to the point in 6 months, a year, 2 years' time, that we've got AI agents doing some tasks for us. As in, like, if we do something regularly, like posting a load of stuff, take this video, chop it up, put it into social media, post it across these things, create a report, That's the kind of stuff that you could hopefully get an AI doing a lot of that manual work for you, automating some of those tasks. So you can focus on doing the creative stuff. That's great. So we'll start to see AI agents doing more of that stuff. But at the moment, they're still not there and able to do that kind of stuff. So, but we're kind of getting there. But this idea that you don't need to do any writing anymore because the AI is doing it for you, no, it's just not quite there yet. And I was asked the question, have you published anything on any platform that you've just got an AI to do it and published it? And I was like, no, I wouldn't do that in a million years. And Nicholas was like, that's the point.
Yeah.
It's not there.
Yeah.
It's not there yet. It's way ahead of where it was, but it's just not at that stage.
I regularly get asked this, the company owners that are shelling out for copywriters, and they were like, yeah, but I've heard that the AI can just do it for us. I'm like, all right then, give me a topic and I'll get some AI to write you. And what you'll see is it's just fairly lackluster. It's fairly pedestrian. There's no sense.
It's wrong.
Yeah. And this is with some advanced tools that will even, you give it the brand, you give it the brand tone, you give it a load of stuff
Jasper does all that stuff as well,
exactly what I used. And it was okay, but it didn't cut it. Like it wasn't anywhere near as good. And that's really the issue. Yeah,
that's it. So,
I mean, I think the whole thing of priorities is massive, because with more complexity, like, as we're all finding, that whole, right, what should I do?
Yeah.
And recently I came across one thing that I took away from a whole morning of analysing this, like of analysing your funnels and all the rest of it. And the one piece of advice they gave us, which really stuck with me, was focus on profit. We're all in business, guys. That's what we're supposed to be doing, right? So when you've got a dozen things to do, the problem is we don't prioritise on profit. We prioritise on crazy things when you think about it. Like, how many of you right now listening to this podcast are prioritizing on things that have just been on your list for a long time? Yeah. Do you know? And these are the things, or things that just like seem the big thing.
Well, urgent or important was always the thing.
Yeah,
right?
that's right. And it's not. Actually, a lot of these things you can just let drift. One of my clients is planning up their social media campaigns for a new website launch. And what I had to say to her is, look, you've come up with some amazing plans here. They're really, really good. But right now, that's not going to help profit because you don't have audiences there. And actually, the only reason really I'd recommend you do it is so you have a presence there, so you're not suspicious by your absence. But actually, there's a ton of other things you could be doing. Like focus on the PR.
Well, what do you think? What moves the needle?
Focus on the things that are actually going to be profit-led. Like it's going to lead with a profit. What's going to give you the quickest advantage?
I think it's beyond profit, though. I mean, if you're a charity or something like that, it's like what's actually going to drive the thing that I need to drive, right? Wherever that is, driving profit, changing people's behaviours, whatever it might be. But what's the thing that moves the needle?
So I would argue that actually define profit.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you know? So actually, if I'm a charity, what's profitable for the charity, and that's going to be whatever it is you need to do to move the needle. It might be. Well, it could be a whole bunch of things. It doesn't have to be financial, but it's all about, in terms of business, you're looking to gain. What's going to give you the biggest gain?
Give you a great example of this, which is actually hilarious, I think, which blows my mind. So I analysed my time recently to go, where am I spending my time? Yeah. And it's like, right, I'm doing loads of training and speaking. Brilliant. Profit. All right. It's either I'm getting paid to do it or it's spreading the word really nicely. So that's already great. Content creation, not enough time on content creation. Need to focus a little bit more on that. That's great. Sales, the single thing that's going to drive everything, next to nothing. Next to nothing. Like literally no time at all. It's like, how do we do sales? How big is our sales team? We don't have a sales. No one does sales, right? We're a marketing-led organisation. I understand that. Yeah. But the point is, you kind of look at your business, and if you take a step and go, that's crazy. Yeah. Okay. So then it's like, okay, I'm going to change and I'm going to spend an hour and a half of my day every day just focusing on sales and relationship building. Okay. I won't give you the numbers yet. I'll give you the numbers in a couple of episodes' time.
It's bearing fruit.
It's ridiculous, right? It's just like sent out 5 emails. We've got 2 things off the back of it. And it's just like, wait a minute. If I've been doing that every day for the last year, the business would be this bit. So sometimes you do need to take a complete step back and go, where am I spending my time? I mean, I'm not saying everyone has the freedom that I have because I can do what the heck I want, I guess. But I can't if we go bankrupt. None of us will be sitting here and there won't be a podcast and else. So the reality is actually, I think noise, AI, all this kind of stuff, take a step back. What moves the needle? Really, really important point. A really interesting one. All those things will be in the show notes as ever, targetinternet.com/podcast. And thank you for listening to the Digital Marketing Podcast.
Please subscribe for more videos like this and visit targetinternet.com for more free digital marketing resources.
And I like Boston as well, so it's a good city to kind of go around.
Is it windy?
No, it's not where I was at all, actually. And I was in Seaport, the main part of it, where the conference is, sorry, and it's all new. It's a beautiful thing. Go to Seaport, it's lovely. Anyway.
Is it supposed to be windy in Boston?
Windy City.
Oh.
I think. I have got the right town.
I think so.
Yeah.
We'll Google it and we'll edit this out if not. But if not, otherwise, yes, absolutely. Okay. First of all, story.
I think it might be Chicago. I don't know. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'll make it up as I go along.